Today's episode is brought to you by FRW Studios, a damn fine design studio as fresh and authentic as the beer you brew. FRW Studios has created killer can designs for dozens of brewers we love, including the Lost Abbey, the Hop Concept, Port Brewing, and so many other craft favorites. Creative director Julie White has happened to design the 15th anniversary Stone Brewing's book, as well as over 20 books for the Brewers Association. In fact, the Brewers Association says Julie is authentic, creative, reliable, and hands down one of the best graphic designers they've worked with. So send them your brand and they'll send you back an original design that fits it or takes it to the next level if that's what you're into. Hop on over to unitedwedrink.com/FRW Studios to see what the buzz is about. And while you're at it, download FRW's Crash Course in Branding for tips and tricks of the trade. Everyone who downloads the PDF will automatically qualify for a chance to win a custom design for your next project. Now that's something to drink about. You make the beer taste good. FRW Studios makes it look good. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast with more leftovers than your Turkey Day dinner. Welcome to United We Drink, right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich. I'm a stuffing connoisseur and a hater of candied yams. Don't at me. I am joined today by only one of my two normal co-hosts of the show. His idea of giving thanks is telling you to go fuck yourself on Twitter and falling asleep early from that rush. Here is Joel Codner.
Oh, Mike, you always have the best intros for me.
I try hard. Phil is currently away on a top secret special assignment at the Riptide Music Festival on Fort Lauderdale Beach. He'll be back to join us on next week's mini episode. Thank you, everyone who continues to listen to the show. It's really awesome to see people coming back and wanting to listen to this week after week after week. It really means a lot to us. What are you drinking today, Joel, for today's episode?
I've got a big cup of coffee because we're recording in the morning this time.
That we are. And I'm drinking a Campari soda. Because
Nice.
I felt like this was probably the most morning thing that I could drink, that I have in my house. I don't have any stuff to make a Bloody Mary. Joel is going to take the spot of Phil for talking about the news. So let's see if we talk about any seltzer.
No seltzer this week. I mean, there's a little bit of news out there for that, but I mean, it's always the same shit. More and more seltzer, more brands making seltzer, millions and millions of dollars being spent on seltzer. Who gives a shit? It's all the same. But the big news this week, New Belgium acquired by Kieran-owned Lion Little World Beverages in an all-cash deal. I think this came as a huge surprise to everybody. New Belgium being known for being an employee-owned craft brewery this whole time, and now it's all over.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of people out there who assume when you say that you're employee-owned, 100% employee-owned, that you're sellout proof. And that's not true because employees could very much want to be a part of a nice payday as well from the sale, and especially if they believe that the company that will be purchasing them can really help the company in the long run. I could see a lot of employee owners saying, sure, this sounds like a great thing, or hey, the holidays are coming up. This will help give a really nice Christmas or whatnot to my family. It's very surprising, yes, but because I think I could speak for you slightly here by saying New Belgium's a brewery that we look up to so much for their long history of quality in beer, the way they treat their employees, their commitment to being environmentally friendly. So much good stuff that company portrays. Um, it is a little shocking.
It's shocking, and I hope things don't change very much. And I've followed a lot of New Belgium employees online on Twitter, and they seem to be saying a lot of positive things. They seem confident and very little will change. And I mean, look at other breweries, whether it's, like Firestone Walker or Boulevard getting folded into the whole Duvel thing or whatever it is. I mean, yeah, ownership changes, where they brew the beer can change. I think Goose Island started making 312 in St. Louis or something like that. Yeah, things change, but I don't see a lot of like overall change happening, at least from what I'm hearing from a lot of employees so far. I don't think they're going to start ripping all of the like hybrid car charging stations out of the parking lot now. You know what I mean? Like, come on. But that's the way everyone's acting online. Of course, you've got the usual contingent of naysayers and haters and people yelling sellouts and all that horse shit. I love New Belgium. I'm happy for them. I don't know what it means 100% for everyone working there. We obviously found out that not everyone was in on the ESOP, or the Employee Stock Ownership Program. Is that what it stands for?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So that obviously puts them in a precarious position. I can't imagine how it must feel if you just joined New Belgium. But I mean, you and I both know and have met some people who have worked there for well over 20 years.
Yeah.
And it seems like they'll do very well from this. I'm reading things like some people could get anywhere from $100,000 to $1 million, which is just fucking nuts. I don't know if that's available now. I don't know how any of that stuff works. I don't know if they have to get it later, but I mean, still, to, put your life into something and for a company and get something back from it. I mean, that's a big deal.
It really is. And I know some of the longer standing employees, yeah, like you said, are probably going to be pretty well taken care of out of the whole thing. I also have enjoyed seeing how a lot of them have been taking this so well on their social media accounts, like seeing people like Andrew Emerton and Maddie Smooth cracking jokes about it too. Like, I think it was Andrew Emerton who had said, like, well, I guess I'm drinking Four Roses tonight because they're owned by the same company. Maddie Smooth being like, oh, Brian Roth didn't even make a pun about this whole thing for us. Like, it's fun to see them being able to have fun about this whole thing too. And like you said, I know that there's some employees that probably aren't very happy because they're in their first year of employment, and from last I heard, your stock options don't start kicking in until your 1 year anniversary at the company. But you know what? Them's the rules, and you know that going in. And it's okay to feel a little bit bitter about it internally, and maybe with your loved ones, your friends and family. But what it all comes down to is you agreed to those terms, and you knew what came into that, and no one forced you to go work there. So it's an unfortunate situation, but it happened, and now, like, hopefully you can get back on the horse and keep working for the company that you are super thrilled about working for, and keep being a part of making awesome beer and an awesome culture in the beer business.
That's very well said. I think it's still a huge opportunity to work for an industry-leading craft brewery, whether or not you want to call them craft or not now, whatever. Like, they make some absolutely unbelievable beer. I think it was Matty Smooth the other day. What did he say? Like, up until recently, they hadn't had any issues with like dumping beer. He mentioned
on our own Instagram account. He mentioned how they had to dump some beer. because we talked
Yeah.
about that on the last mini episode.
Right, and they were so, they know what they're doing. Like, they had such a good streak going that I think his point was like, it wasn't until recently. I almost wanted to joke with him, like, don't tell Kieran that you just dumped some beer. Did they find out before the deal went through? But it's still a huge opportunity to work for a great brewery, regardless of ownership. I mean, if you have the opportunity to work for them and learn how they do things, I think that's huge. And I think there's a reason why they've been able to retain so many people for decades now. And the people I've met have been nothing but warm and inviting. And, I had a tour there almost exactly a month ago in Asheville, and it was unbelievable. They took us through the whole place, showed us everything, answered every question. And we were nobodies in the grand scheme. Like, you didn't have to set aside 2 hours for us. We're not anybody big. We're nobody, and they were so hospitable and really took care of us, and it was wonderful. And I know some independently owned, craft, artisanal, independent, whatever you want to call them, brewers that have been fucking dicks to us. So,
Yeah.
I like, it's no secret. I've said before on the show, independent doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot to me. To me, it's more about the beer and how, the companies behave. And it's not so black and white when it comes to ownership. So I'm still rooting for New Belgium. I'm not going to stop buying the beer. And it'll be interesting to see what comes of this.
Same here. I have no reason to want to stop drinking their beer, and unless they make huge employee changes by letting go of people, then we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But hopefully that doesn't happen. And congratulations to the people at New Belgium, and hopefully this makes their company stronger and better.
Yeah, so moving on, we have another acquisition, Artisanal Brewing Ventures to acquire Bold Rock Hard Cider. I haven't heard of either of these guys. Have you?
Well, Artisanal Brand Ventures is the group that owns Victory, Six Point, and Southern Tier.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Southern Tier and Victory merged a few years ago to create, or were purchased by like a investment capital place, and they merged to create this company. They purchased Six Point a year or two ago, and now they're go ahead and buying Bold Rock. I've never heard of Bold Rock before this, but they also have a seltzer line.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's probably the big point in this whole thing, is giving this this company now a step in the right direction with that segment of the beverage industry. They have ciders now, and they have seltzers now, and none of those other three breweries have to necessarily dip their feet into that market. They can just keep doing what they are known for doing and making high quality beer.
And are those the only breweries? Because I remember you mentioned the other day how the photo in that article looked like it was thousands of brands.
Those are the only companies involved in it, but it's such a weird photo, the official press release photo, because it's like, here's cider on top of resin next to No Brainer and Golden Monkey that has seltzer on top of it, and Hootie and more cider, and then Southern Tier IPA and fog. It's just like really weirdly set up. Just from I'm not a photography buff by any means, but just from my own eye, it looks weird and cluttered. But it is technically only 4 companies in there, but there's a whole lot of different brands within them on there.
Gotcha. And it seemed to have come out of nowhere, because it feels like it's been very quiet on the cider front these days, especially with seltzer being all the rage.
Yeah, that's very true. I remember it was like 4-5 years ago, cider was on such a trend upward, and then it just plateaued. I don't know what necessarily happened there, but I think that the main point of this acquisition is the seltzer brand. The cider is just probably a happy second option to it, even though that the company is hard cider in their name.
And I remember a few years ago at our last brewery when cider seemed to be blowing up and it was like the fastest growing segment.
Yeah.
And our last boss was like, hey, go learn how to make cider quickly. And it was like, okay. And then nothing ever came of it. Probably a good move.
Yeah, and luckily for us there in Florida, breweries with their brewer's license can't make cider. You need to have a winery license, which a brewery can hold, but it needs to be a separate facility. So, yeah, that kind of made our job a little easier on not having to learn that much about cider.
Didn't have to go out and source a bunch of Florida apples.
I don't think there's such a thing as Florida apples.
Right.
But yeah, I think that the big take out of that acquisition is the seltzer line.
Yeah, and our good buddy Phil, in his absence, sent us our last piece of news. I can't make heads or tails out of half of it because this is his department. He's the sales, scan, data, IRI, FMB, all those fucking acronyms. But basically, the gist of it seems like, it's, as it says, it's looking like another year of low single-digit growth for craft in IRI scans. Total craft trends are pretty consistent across the board. What else? It seems like Sierra Nevada was picking up steam, up 6.9%, nearly double its year-to-date, and up 3. I don't even know what the fuck is MULC.
I don't know, but
damn it, Phil, where are you?
The dollar trend is up 7.6%. That must be a good thing too.
And the article,
us salespeople, we really know what we're talking about here.
Right.
But it also says New Belgium was crushing it too, even prior to the announcement of this deal.
Right. So it looks like Kieran snatched them on the way up, and that part of it, which I didn't mention in the New Belgium part of the news, was surprising because the guy that was giving us the tour in Asheville, he I guess maybe he was a bit humble, but he was just like, things are okay for us. He recognized the looming threat of seltzer and how a brewery of their size is not entirely as experimental as, like you don't see New Belgium doing triple mashes and 14-hour boils and silly shit like that. So it doesn't seem like they're doing the same stuff that the tiny guys are doing. But, he made it seem like they were doing okay, but nothing crazy. But I mean, these numbers seem to indicate they're doing a lot better than he said.
It's double-digit growth for them.
Yeah, which is, today is huge. And, the article goes on to mention, once again, artisanal brewing, Canarchy, Firestone Walkers, some of these, larger groups of brewers are doing very well. I think it's interesting how they're really pushing hard on these mixed brewery 6-packs and 12-packs because part of me would think that would almost be a turnoff. But people seem to be going for that as well.
I mean, thinking back to our early days of getting into beer, making the mixed 6-packs, here's someone pre-making a mixed 12-pack for you. Kind of like they're doing some of the work for you. I feel that can be intriguing to people who just want to try new things. And I have seen people talk about how they got those, they did an IPA pack, Canarchy, that had like High Ally and a Perrin IPA, and I think it was like Cano Bliss, and I can't remember who the fourth one was from. Phil would definitely know. But people were like, oh, this is so cool to finally get to try some of these new IPAs from breweries that I've never heard of or have heard a lot from. It was an opportunity for people to try High Ally for the first time. It's a weird thing when we think about it as production brewers and the logistics that have to go into constructing packs like that in such huge quantity, because they're not just coming through the canning line as like, oh, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, those 6 beers now. All right, perfect, easy. Put them in the box. No, like you gotta do all of one brand, all of another brand, all of another brand, and then bring them all back out and assemble the packs. Like, that's a lot of manpower, it feels like. I know for these bigger breweries, there's probably streamlining in place.
Yeah, there's definitely some automation.
But it's to me, from the production standpoint, just that sounds scary to me. If a boss is like, I mean, you and I did it a little bit at our last brewery. We did some experimenting with mixed 6-packs that we just did in the tasting room, and those were a bit of a pain to do on such a small scale. So, but I do think that it's something that that certain people can find intriguing and want to send the cash out to buy.
Yeah, and it seems to indicate in this article that, Canarchy is putting up probably the best numbers out of everyone, up 27.8% year to date. Right behind them, Firestone Walker. I don't even know like how far Canarchy's reach is right now. Is it totally national? Because I've seen a lot of people drinking Jai Alai all over the country now, which is great.
I think it depends on the brand within the umbrella. I think that Oscar Blues is in all 50 states, or at least all continental 48. Cigar City's in the 30s, I think, for the amount of states that they're in. And then, like, you got Perrin and the Deep Ellum in Texas. You got Squatters in Utah. And then their LA one, Three Weavers, I think it is?
So.
I know that some of those ones probably don't have as much of the reach. The Oscar Blues facilities make some of those beers, and probably to help with home markets or regional markets to some of those brands. But Oscar Blues is definitely out there, because I think, isn't Dale's the biggest selling craft brand in the country? Like,
it's got to be up there. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's everywhere.
Where's Phil when we need him? But yeah, and then Cigar City's huge popularity, I think, has helped them with being able to grow as much as they have within that company.
It's amazing looking at the growth, considering, I mean, I first tried their beer 10 years ago. And I remember us like, oh my God, we're getting Jai Alai bottles, and now, oh my God, Jai Alai cans. Like, that was the big deal. Yeah. And now it's like, it is fucking everywhere. And it's great. I
remember the first 6-pack of Jai Alai that I got in cans, and I was like, this is so much better than any bottle I've ever had of it. It was just like, like eye-opening. And I love the bottles too, but it was just like, wow, this tastes even better. Did they change the recipe, or is the can doing it?
I used to keep every single Cigar City bottle that I had.
I did
and
too.
I mean, all those large format bottles. Holy shit! Like, I had them all cleaned out and just, oh man, I was getting ready to move, and I was like, I got to get rid of this shit. And I really wish I had them, because some of them, I mean, some of those classic Photoshop designs. I mean, oh my God. That old school, like, winter warmer. It almost looked like, a Master P album. Or like 110K plus OT.
Yeah. The Bolita bottles and Improvision. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, enough memory lane. That's the news, I guess. We miss you, Phil. Come back.
Yeah. Save us from sales stuff that we don't really know about. So our main topic for this episode is we wanted to talk a little bit about getting into this industry. Obviously, no one is just really starting out their whole life and career into the beer industry. You get an in somewhere, in some way, shape, or form. And we wanted to share a little bit about our experiences in getting into this industry, and like, if things really seem to go the way we thought they were, differences, things that opened our eyes and we were like, wow, this is very different than what we thought. Joel, how about you tell us about how you came about actually working in this industry?
I was in accounting, which is a very glorified way of saying data entry. And I was just sort of languishing in corporate America for about 15 years. after high school. I was dabbling in this school and that school, changed careers a few times. Nothing ever really stuck. Did computer repair and construction and all sorts of different things. And one day I'm sitting in the cubicle, and I had been into beer for a few years, and I'm just thinking, like, I've got to get the hell out of here. I can't do this anymore. It was miserable. It was terrible. And there was no real direction. It was a great place to work turned into a real shitty place to work in a few years when the economy was taking a dump. And our last brewery had opened, and you and I were both working there part-time just to make some extra cash. And I believe you had gone on full-time just before me and started to let me know.
Far ahead.
Yeah, and you had let me know there was an opportunity in the brew house available, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, I know it's a cut in pay, I know it's a step back, but I got to do something else, and I already enjoy being in the brewery. I had already tried to be there as much as humanly possible. I had started out there twice a month, on Saturdays, and then that turned into weekly, and then that turned into twice a week. And I was just filling in for whoever I could. Anytime a shift opened up, I'd jump on it. I loved being there. I wanted to be a part of it. And when that full-time position opened, I thought to myself, you and I had a long conversation about it, and you put in a really good word for me. They seemed surprised that I would want to leave a corporate gig and get into the brewery, but I just had to get the hell out of there. And made the leap in... what was it, March 2013, and just, started at the bottom, cleaning kegs, low hourly pay, just being the grunt worker and the shitheel. And I feel like that's a good place to start, because you learn a hell of a lot. One thing I can definitely tell you is the industry adage is 100% true. It is 99% cleaning and 1% brewing. I always tell people, like, because, for me, like, brew days, are sort of wrapping up when the tap room opens around 4:00, and people are coming in after work and stuff. So the most you'll ever really get to see me doing is hosing out buckets and spraying floors and shit like that. I mean, it's one thing people should definitely expect when getting into the industry is that it's not glamorous. I mean, you may get in with a real cool brewery, and there's a lot of high profile breweries, and they're traveling worldwide, even in their very early stages, doing collaborations, doing all kinds of fun stuff. But the travel can suck. The all of these different things that you got to do. I mean, they can wear on you. Like, I mean, I remember going to my 4th or 5th CBC, and I was like, man, fuck this. I'd rather be home. I feel like we could talk about this for hours, but
oh yeah.
I think some good things to remember when you're getting into the industry is just remember, it's not glamorous. You are expected to work hard. Definitely put the beer before yourself. The yeast don't give a shit that it's, your kid's birthday or that you're just not feeling well today. I mean, like, don't go to work sick, don't work injured, stuff like that, obviously. And hopefully you work in a place that will allow you time off and hopefully have benefits. Not all of them do. It's a notoriously underpaying industry. Benefits are pretty rare, and benefits and good pay are so rare that when a brewery is doing it right, it makes news. I'll put it to you that way. So, check your ego at the door. Don't think you know better than the people above you or the ones that came before you. Definitely respect your elders in a sense, and be there to listen and learn and ask good questions. Don't just be a robot and go, because different, I remember for us, we had different people teaching us different things, and, one person would be like, I want you to do this because this is the way it's done. And then other people would be like, well, this is what you do because this is what's happening and here's what's coming next. And, laying out the whole logical process, which for me is a better learning situation than just, being told to do something and not understanding why. I always
learning and memorizing are two completely different things.
Yeah. And repetition helps, and muscle memory and all that. I mean, there's some things you could do now after years of doing it that's like you don't even think twice about it. But it helps to understand why you're doing what you're doing. So hopefully you're working in a place that's big on educating you, keeping your education going, and not just looking for a set of hands. Definitely don't volunteer, get paid for your work. It is a dangerous job. You're dealing with hazardous chemical. I mean, we've talked about this on the safety episode and in other episodes. It's a serious business. I mean, it's industrial. It's manufacturing. Think of yourself as being in a factory, because that's really what it is. And you can get injured. You can get burned. I mean, there's all different sorts of things that can happen.
You could die.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not exaggerating. It has happened, and we've talked about that. And, so I think that the overall gist for me is, leave your ego at the door, expect to work your ass off, put the beer ahead of yourself, and know your worth. Don't succumb to the industry thing about, well, we just don't have money to pay. If you don't have that, you shouldn't be employing people. You know what I mean?
If the brewery tells you they don't have enough money to pay you, then that's not a brewery that you work for. Plain and simple. Even if you are new to this industry and they're looking for an entry level position, but are like, yeah, we can't pay you, then you don't work there. That's fine. That's up. I know that might sound like, oh, I'm passing up an opportunity. Well, opportunity to do work should come with pay. If you want to volunteer to do stuff, volunteer for events that they're doing where it's like pouring a beer, something like that is a little less dangerous than dealing with a keg washer that has two different types of compressed air going into it and couple different hazardous chemicals involved in it, or dealing with bright tanks that have tons of pressure on them and accidentally taking off the wrong butterfly valve could just end up with high pressure liquid coming at you. Get paid to do stuff that involves real danger because, this is a dangerous job, as we mentioned in the safety episode. I myself, I started working at the same brewery that Joel was mentioning. I started about 2 months after the opening of that brewery. I started working full time in July of 2012 after just working a day a week, bartending on the weekends while doing IT. That was my career. I was in web hosting, server admin for about 8 years prior to that. And I had a beer blog that I started at one point, and I started this podcast before working there, the initial run of this show. So I wanted to be in this industry. I did some interviews for positions that were open for distributors and suppliers, like sales rep stuff. And I'm glad I didn't get those jobs, because I realize now I'm not a salesperson. And I'm sure that there's brewers who are listening like, you're always a salesperson for your brand. Yes, that's true to a certain point. If there's a person at the bar who's like, hey, you brew, I can talk and be salesy like that and talk up our brand. But going out and cold calling a bar or trying to set up programs for stuff like that, it's not me. And I'm willing to admit that that's not me. I'm glad that I got work on the other side of things. And I cleaned kegs. I filled kegs. I then got rolled into doing more operation stuff. I was doing graphic design. I was doing website management. I was doing our taxes. I was doing so much different stuff. Worked with Joel on scheduling. We worked with Joel and our salespeople on trying to do scheduling for our seasonal and limited stuff. And it's funny now. I've been working predominantly in the production side of things, with actually being in the cellar for the last couple of years. And yeah, we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago about how like, oh, just working in beer, it sounds so cool. You get to have beer at the end of the day, blah, blah, blah. But man, it's eye-opening about how dangerous it can be there. It's eye-opening to see just how certain people are. Like, you will work with people who have the same idea as you. Like, I've been trying to get my foot in this door, and some of them are super receptive and are like, sweet, awesome, like, we're working in beer. And others might be very like, hey, you're trying to take my spot. This was my spot. And be confrontational and competitive towards you about this. And you might not want to be. You're just like, hey, I'm here too. There's enough room for both of us. We are both here. And sometimes you'll deal with troublesome coworkers at times. There's that happens in pretty much any industry where you have multiple people in your business, because just people will clash. They don't have the same mindsets.
Yeah, it's no different than, if you were working at a fucking Chipotle or the library or wherever else. I mean, people are people, and they've got their own different personalities. Sometimes you clash, sometimes you don't. That's why I was really saying to just put the brewery and the beer before yourself. I mean, obviously not when it comes to like safety wise and, your mental health and things like that. You know what I'm talking about. And
yeah, check your ego at the door.
Right.
I don't know how many times in all of the jobs that I've had, you get like a home brewer coming in and trying to flex their muscle on you. And it's like, dude, what the fuck? Like, sure, I homebrewed 2 batches in my life. I would not consider myself a home brewer, but just like when a home brewer will come in and be like, I could really help with things here. It's like, you're kind of slapping a person in the face by saying something like that. You're not going to get many people saying like, oh, sweet, let me go get the paperwork for you to fill out your W-4 and all of that, because you obviously know so much more. Like, don't be a fucking dick to try to get yourself in the door and just go like, I'm this, I'm that, blah, blah, blah. I can really help you.
Yeah, I mean, I remember one of our previous employers almost automatically rejecting anyone who was putting stuff down like homebrew experience or recipe development or anything like that, because, it was their brewery and their recipes and they didn't want any of that tinkered with, or, they were keeping things very close to the chest. And I mean, it's not to shit on homebrewers or anything like that, because I think if you're going in with some experience as far as fermentation and all of the different ways, to make beer, if you have that knowledge, it's a great fundamental to have, because
I'm just saying be humble about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. You don't want to come into the interview and be like, I can help you with, fixing your IPA and stuff like that. Because, like, what do you mean? What's wrong with our IPA? But yeah, it's definitely, and I think people just have to have the right realistic expectations, and hopefully you and I can provide some of that on this episode. I mean, I certainly don't want to make it sound like it sucks or like it's an industry you should stay away from, but there are certain things you want to look at. I mean, just like any job site will tell you, like, prepare for your interview and learn about the company. I mean, you should definitely do that with the brewery too. Just because they make your favorite hazy IPA or pastry stout, or, you're a regular there and you know the guys behind the bar, like, doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to translate into a good working environment or, a place where you can succeed. You really want to know what the goals are, what their plan is. Do they plan to grow? Do they plan to expand? How would you fit into all of that? Is there growth opportunity for you, or are you just going to be stuck at the end of the canning line slapping pack techs on 6-packs till the end of time? What about the ownership? I mean, are they good people, or do they know about beer? There are tons of people in this saturated industry now that have no brewery experience, no business ownership experience, but, they've got money, so they open a brewery and may have great success in the beginning, but, you never know what's going on behind closed doors. So it's important to really know who you're working for and what their plans are, because you got to look out for yourself. You don't want to get blindsided by layoffs or, leaving a career to go make beer and you're like, oh, this sucks. Like, this isn't what I was expecting. It's not glamorous, guys. I mean, like I said, it's a lot of cleaning, it's long days, you know, and not every brewery is the cleanest either. I mean, I've been in some real shitholes that it's just like, fuck, I can't imagine spending all day back here.
Yeah. And you know, one thing you said a little bit earlier that with it's not glamorous, the whole idea of traveling and going to conferences and beer fests outside of the state or an event for a brewery outside of the state, that sounds so glamorous, but it can really take its toll on you after a while. I mean, I remember one CBC that you and I were at, and by like the last day you were like, I need like all the benefiber in the world right now.
Yep.
It's just like it takes a toll on your body, man. And like physically, emotionally, like you spend so much time away from your family, your friends, whatever, sleeping in hotel rooms with probably not that uncomfortable of beds, or not that comfortable of beds rather, because you're used to your own bed. You miss your wife, your husband, your kids, your dogs, your cats, or whatnot. It's tough sometimes, and you just want to go home by the end and be like, and hug a loved one and be like, it's good to see you again. But it's not all that super glamorous. It might be at first and be like, wow, and then because you have kind of the blinders on and you can only see what's directly in front of you. But man, by the time it's all said and done, you hurt all over in your brain and in your body, and it's just nice to get back to normal.
Yeah, and you know, just like anything else on social media, most of the time breweries are only going to show you the good stuff. You know, they wear spilling shit out of a fermenter and overblown blow off buckets all over the floor. You know, that's their new badge of honor. But you know, that's the little stuff. But you know, for the most part, it's all, you know, bro handshakes and collab photos and hey, we're traveling here and here's all the cool stuff we're doing. And you know, I really respect the brewers and the brewery employees who are out there like painting a realistic picture of what's going on in their day, and you know, posting about shit like, oh, the glycol chiller went down and you know, we're dealing with this, we're dealing with that. I mean, like, really spotlighting, you know, the stuff that really does go wrong and the things that can hamper your day. I mean, you know, you can look through my social media and I guarantee you there's no photos of me like crying in the office because I just had to tell my wife I missed my son's soccer game, or I'm going to miss it that night because something went wrong. Like, I'm not trying to paint this picture like it's all doom and gloom or anything. I'm just saying that it's not what everybody paints it as online.
It's not rainbows and bubblegum all the time.
Right.
Either.
It's not, you know, you can go through plenty of hardship. I mean, everyone has terrible days. There's all kinds of shit that can go wrong. And like I said, if you're putting the beer before yourself, you can't just go, oh, like I put in my 8 hours, I'm going to go home now. You know, if something's wrong and you're there to fix it, like you should stay and help fix it and put that beer ahead of yourself and make sure things are done right. You know, there's a lot of, I've worked with some lazy people before who I just like, I couldn't believe their mentality. Like, you know, just, I'm tired. I'm not going to do this. I'll put it off till tomorrow. It's like, well, if you put that off till tomorrow, you're going to offset the whole schedule. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So, you know, like Mike said, it's not all sunshine and rainbows and shit. Just do your due diligence. And if you're going to make the jump, you know, it's a big deal to consider. For me, I kind of felt like I had no choice. I was really trapped in hell. I hated it in corporate America. I was very miserable and I just didn't know what else to do. And I definitely credit, you know, saving beer with changing my life. I mean, I know that sounds very overdramatic, but you know, I could still be sitting in that cubicle going nowhere, but you know, I made the jump, and I know it's very cliche and boring to everyone now. You know, we have over 7,000 craft breweries, and people online talk shit all the time, like, oh, another I left the fucking cubicle story, big deal. It's like, you know what? Go fuck yourself, because you know, I left something I hated doing, and I'm sorry you've heard this story 1,000 times, but you know, this is what I did, and this is what made me happy, and this is what turned things around for me. And I'm happy to say I've had some success since then. And I don't know what story people want to hear these days. Like, it's not like my planet was dying and my parents sent me off to Earth to brew fucking beer. Like, you know what I mean? Like Superman. I mean, I don't know what you're expecting these days. I think if anybody can get out of something they don't like doing and follow something they love, I'm all for it. I just want people to be smart about it and not do anything they regret or get into something that they had the wrong expectations.
Wait, so let me get this right. You're not Superman? The fuck have I been doing with my life?
I'm not even that.
I've been keeping kryptonite away from you on purpose because I'm like, this will kill Joel. Well, I guess I'll bring a stick next time
Please
I see
do,
you.
and I'll show you where to put it.
I think that maybe could try to break down a couple like main points to tell people who might be thinking about getting into the industry or really want to get into it because they're passionate about it. And if I could give a couple like bullet points, it would mainly be listen a lot. Listen to what you're being told and absorb what you're listening to. When you do talk for a while, ask questions. Ask good questions. Ask why that thing that you've been told to do needs to be done that way. And then listen again. Absorb that information. Learn it. Be humble. If you got an ego, check it at the door or don't even bother. Because even if you are a little bit right, some people just are not going to like to hear stuff like that from an interviewee. You might be able to bring an issue like that up later on after you start learning and you start gaining the trust of the employer and the employees that you're there with, and then maybe it can help lead into something good and better at that time. And a lot of this just goes along with things that we talked about with safety and consumption and work-life balance. And it's just like, take care of yourself. Watch out for all of the temptation that might be there in the industry that could hurt one's physical, mental, emotional state. Just be safe. And yeah, and definitely don't think that this is a glamorous job because it's fucking not. You're going to sweat a lot. You're going to probably have stuff grow where you don't want it to grow. Your feet will be gross. Your hands will be rough. Yeah.
Do you have an example, from your own personal story of something that surprised you, or like you got into the industry and you were like, oh, that's not what I expected. I didn't realize that, or something like that?
I would probably say stuff dealing with distributors was a lot more shocking than I really thought. I mean, I was of the belief that like the distributors are your friends. They want to sell your beer and help build your brand. And while that can be true, they're not your salespeople. They are employees for the distributors. They sell lots of beers, and they don't have one particular one that necessarily needs to be sold more than the other unless it's affecting their paycheck. You need to have feet out on the streets selling your brand, and then them talking to the distributor and being like, look, I sold into this place. We're working on a program with this chain, because the distributor's not going to go to that chain and be like, hey, you want to do a program with brewer XYZ? No, you have to do that. Your people need to do that. And then let the distributor know so that they can make it logistically work. The distributors aren't as much of your sales team as I originally thought they were. What about you?
Sometimes I just have like revelations later on, where I think back and I'm like, man, maybe this person or that person didn't know as much as I thought they did, or I don't know how to explain it without sounding shitty about it, but it's like, yeah, we said check your ego at the door and all that stuff, but at the same time, be curious and, like Mike said, ask questions, ask good questions, be concerned about, what happens next after you, flip this lever or pull this button. But at the same time, like, I always tell people there's no level 100 brewer. There are some amazing, unbelievable brewmasters out there who could probably tell you everything from memory, but I think it's a constant learning process. People are always, as this industry grows, people are always changing their processes, developing new ways of doing things. I mean, just like all the changes we've seen in IPA in the last few years and how people do things. I mean, so a lot of it goes completely contrary to what you and I learned in the beginning about, dry hopping and different hopping techniques and things of that nature. So always be learning, always be willing to, learn something new, order that book you see online, get into, there's all kinds of shit online. One of my favorite things is just to look in the back of the issue of New Brewer and see what the brewer they're interviewing has to say advice wise. Like there's always little gems in there, and that's why I keep those issues. Learn.
I remember one that we found about dry hopping technique from a guy from Fatheads in the back of one of those issues. And it was like, why didn't we think of that?
Yeah.
Like it made so much sense.
Yeah. And, you can go work for a brewery and spend a bit of time there. And, they have their one way of doing things. There's a lot of egos in this business. Some people don't want to change their ways or think that, they're doing just fine the way they're doing and there's no need for improvement. But I think there's always room for improvement. I think you can always fine tune and upgrade and all those things. So, keep your ego in check, but always be learning, always be wanting to learn more than the next guy if he doesn't want to learn.
I think the evidence in that is the fact that you can go to CBC year after year and see some of the most impressive brewers in the world going to seminars and learning new stuff, trying to expand their knowledge about this industry. Yeah, some of them are giving talks, but you can go in and see Wayne Wambles or Tommy Arthur sitting in on seminars and trying to learn. No one knows everything in this industry, and even something that you might know, some new way of doing it might make your day so much easier and make your beer so much better.
I'm always open to learning more, and for the most part, the industry is mostly filled with good people, and those good people will always want to give you a helping hand and, tell you how they do things. If there's somebody who's being super secretive about shit, it's like, it's like our buddy Matt Manthey at Oddbreed said one time. It's like, we're not magicians. We're not fucking David Copperfield here. It's okay to tell each other how we do things. Legally, I can't give you a recipe to one of my beers at my current brewery, but I mean, even if I did, you're not going to exactly create it at home. Even if you try to replicate everything, every brewer just has their own little nuance and their own little touch on things. I mean, I don't know what people are so afraid of when it comes to sharing information or recipe help or any of that stuff. Sometimes there's egos and shit like that, but definitely leave the beer snob shit at the door, and hopefully you're not getting into a brewery that promotes that culture. We've seen a few of those. If you notice that your coworkers and your ownership and management are just actively shitting on other breweries, get the fuck out of there. Don't help promote that. Don't help.
Or trading or selling their own beer.
Yeah, that shit's gross, man. I mean, it might be tough, but if you're going to get into this business, get into, a brewery that really promotes good culture and community involvement and positivity and all that good stuff, because if you're not, man, it's going to be no different than being at your last shitty job, whatever that was.
Yeah. Anything else that you want to add into this before we wrap this up? It'll be interesting to hear what, because Phil's going to want to chime in on this next week because he got to miss it. But anything you want to add in?
I just want to say that anybody has questions or anything like that, I'm always here for them. I don't know everything, and I'm not the best prognosticator when it comes to the future of business and where things are going and trends and shit like that. But I'm always happy to help, and I'm here if anybody has questions.
Same here. Same here. Always feel free to reach out. And if I don't know an answer, I can try to point you in the direction to someone who could answer your question. All right. So I think it's about time for us to head into our last calls, the point in the show where we each give each other an unspecific amount of time to just talk about something, uninterrupted, unopposed. And Joel, why don't you go ahead?
I just, not to be a downer or anything, but I just want to say that the entirety of November has just been complete dog shit. I cannot wait to get this month over with. I'm very much looking forward to going into the holidays and, having some Christmas cheer and all that good stuff. This month has just been a fucking disaster, and I can't wait to get it over with. I want to wish everybody listening happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. Hope you're well. Hope you've got some good food this coming weekend. And hopefully, it hasn't been the best month for me, as I said, but I'm trying to find ways of turning that around. And, if I can't have good shit happen to me, then I'm trying to at least help good shit happen to other people. And, I find myself doing stuff like donating more this time of year and, contributing to food drives and shit like that. And, that stuff really helps me feel better when things are going wrong. So I hope everybody else can do that too. Try to make a difference for someone else if, things aren't going well for yourself. Helping others always helps you.
Yeah. And, what I was going to talk about is very, very similar. We are getting into the holiday season, and a fun little fact that I think not a lot of people really know about me is I really do like the holidays. I really like Christmas. I really like Thanksgiving. And I love decorations and being nice to one another and snow and hot chocolate and everything that really just goes along with winter cheer is something that I am so for. And being that heading into this part of the year, I was dealt a tough blow for myself personally, and I've been able to pull myself up by the bootstraps and have great friends and family supporting me and helping me get by a tough time. And I'm hoping that going into the holidays now, things will be looking up a little bit more for me, for you, for everyone that you care about. And, you can help a person who might be having a tough time about things. Maybe they lost someone close to them, or maybe this time of year just makes them sad. And you can go out of your way to really help someone. And I think that that's a super important thing to do to one another. Yeah, that's that. Joel, anything you want to plug?
No.
No. All right. well, I won't plug myself then too, but I will plug the podcast. Make sure that you follow us on our social media. We're on Twitter at United We Drink, Instagram at United We Drink Pod. We're also on Facebook, facebook.com/United We Drink. You can subscribe to this show on any of the major streaming services, any podcast apps of your choice. We're on them: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Podcast Addict, Overcast, any of those. We are on there. We will be back with a brand new mini episode next week. Phil will be back then. We'll do some Q&A. So if you have any questions for us over here at the show, go to our contact page on our website, unitedwedrink.com, or send us an email, info@unitedwedrink.com, and we may read it and answer it on a future episode. Buy a shirt, sticker, or button at unitedwedrink.com/store. And then in 2 weeks, we'll be back with a brand new main episode where we'll be talking about bucket lists, our personal bucket lists of things that we want to do in this industry. I think that could be a really fun one. Until next week, we'll see you next time. Happy Thanksgiving, safe Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Tubular Tuesday, or whatever is coming up. But take care, everyone. We'll see you then.
Hail Satan.
Cheers.
I get yelled at every single fucking time.